Do your parents know what you're doing at school?
My parents know what I'm doing at school because they're staff members, so of course they know what I do.
The same with me because both of my parents staff at the school, so they know everything I do.
Um, they actually they feel free to tell me, so I have a pretty good idea of what they're doing. In fact, my 6-year-old likes to she likes to sometimes see if she can push my buttons by telling me I saw an M video today, but she's no worse for wear. She's
They know as much as I choose to tell them, which basically means that that when I first started going to Sudbury Valley, I didn't really like talking about it because I just wanted to be able to go there, not feel like I was under the watchful eye of my parents. I started to feel more comfortable not worrying about what they think. Also, now that I'm older and I'm not as dependent on them, so now they pretty much know what I do.
Whenever a parent comes with doubts to the staff and asks, what did my daughter do today? The staff always comes to us and says, is it okay with you if I talk to your parents about you or about your day or what you do at school? And they never do it without the kid's approval, and sometimes without the kid, sometimes in the kid's presence, which is also, it's great to know we're not being judged, not to our knowledge, not in front of us, not behind our backs. No one judges, and that's also an incredible thing.
I sort of believe that it's best if the parents aren't involved too much. Yeah, because I tend to think that the students generally act differently when there's parents around. That's the way I see it.
Well, my parents staff at the school, but it's not like I spend a lot of time around them because I'm around them all the time at home. But I think it's fine for them to staff at the school just as long as they're not in your face.
I don't really want to be part of the school day. I think it's I have an impact if I'm there. My daughters are going to be, behave differently. I mean, they're going to, my 6-year-old, when I have come during the day, it's like she'll climb on my lap. I mean, being their mother, they would feel less free, I think, with me around. So I would rather be involved in everything else, outside of it, organizing camping trips, there's a lot of ways I like being involved, but not being there during the school day.
I think it would be hard being a parent and being there, because you might hear your child swearing or something like that, or playing violent games or whatever it is, and I think that's probably the hardest part, and they still want to be the parent of you, and I think that would be the hardest part.
I mean, it really depends on the kid and depends on the parent, but I think for most parents of most kids, they tend to make the kids less comfortable just being themselves. But that's not to say that parents are not involved at all in school. Parents are voting members of the school assembly, which doesn't really have a day-to-day management function, but does sort of approve the budget at the end of the year and is the legal governing body of the school. And there's certainly, I think in most Sudbury schools, certainly at Sudbury Valley and Greenwood, welcome to come and go, into the school. They're just not regular members of the school community.
I'm a member of the school assembly. I'm also on the board of trustees. We have something that other schools don't have, but it's been a nice thing for our school, which is we have a parents club. And the mission of the parents club is so that parents can meet and express concerns. We have a monthly meeting, and it's where we can talk about it, so people can, bring up and say, oh, gee, my child is playing video games 6 hours a day, and people can explain why video games are a valuable way to spend time. And it has been a really nice support, way of getting support, because a lot of us, have family members have blood relations that don't support this way of schooling.
And then we also have social events, which for the parents that are anxious always turn into philosophical discussions, because they always go find a staff member and they got to dump out all their concerns, and you end up talking about philosophy the whole time. And so they're not really very social, but at the same time we have like cake and coffee and things like that,
I actually like to let them know I think it's a healthy thing when they worry. If they're not worried, it makes me worry. Because I think they are doing something that hardly anyone else in this country and the world chooses to do. And at the same time, and I think they need a huge amount of support to do that. And I think one of the best lessons that they can be helping their children through is just taking responsibility for that whole process of their education.
We've also tried having lectures and discussions, and those are, something that kind of happens on a cycle. That what happens is we have them and people come and they have a lot of discussion, and then we have another one and fewer people come, and with the third one hardly anybody comes except the real, what we call the basket case parents, that are really nervous, and then we say we're not going to have any more of those because nobody comes, and so we don't have them for a year or 2 years. And then the parents are saying, can we have one of those things? And so we have one, and people come and they say, this is great, have another one. And then fewer people come, and then nobody comes, and we stop.
Have you ever had some doubts about the school or about the philosophy, about this freedom?
Initially, I did. When she first started, it was difficult to, because I was accustomed to thinking about school the way everybody did. I was accustomed to tolerating the discomfort, which is what happens. It's uncomfortable to make your children do homework. It's uncomfortable when they say they don't want us to go to school in the morning and you make them go, but you figure, well, everybody has to do this. They'll, in the long run, it's the right thing to do. But And also, at first I had doubts because we know so few other people that are doing this. But the more I read and the more I saw how happy my daughters are, then I just looked at it and said, I have 2 daughters that love going to school. So the word school to them means some wonderful place. Plus, I see that my daughters are learning all sorts of things anyway. I mean, it's not like the day that she stepped out of traditional school was the day she stopped acquiring academic skills. She's acquiring them on her own, and nobody's interfering with how far she can take. For instance, she writes better at 11 than I did when I was in high school. She really does. She's a really good writer, but she can do that as many hours a day as she wants. And then she's also getting something wonderful, which is children that are much more accepting than they were in the public school. They don't feel they need to tease each other because they're having their freedom curbed by adults, So at this point, I have no doubts. I think that I can't believe how lucky I am that I found this school and we get to live the way we do.
Do you think that the parents have to accept the model so that their kids can go to the school?
I think it very much affects. It's hard to be in an environment where you're free and you're accepted, and what you want to do, you do. What you don't, and then go home and have somebody saying, you did this wrong, you should have done that.
Neither of my parents were big fans of the idea at first, but they knew that it was the only school I'd be willing to go to. My mom has since appreciated how happy going to Sudbury Valley has made me. So she appreciates she appreciates the model now.
My dad was he didn't know what was going on. He was okay that I was going to the school, but he was a little freaked out at first because My mom was fine with it because she was the one who wanted to send me to the school, but I'm happy she sent me to the school because I love it.
The students who's, like, we have a lot of, not a lot at all, but a couple of students who have one parent who very much believes in the school and another who's very much against it. And you see it in their behavior. They have a harder time to go according to the law, to the rules, and have a harder time feeling comfortable doing what they like because they know they're gonna get yelled at or told that to do things differently. So it's like saying, here, you have freedom, but you gotta go according to what I say. So if a parent doesn't really believe it, it's hard for the kid to get along in the school.
The only thing I could think to say is that trusting your children. I mean, I believe after having my children in there for 3 years, that education should be in the hands of our children, that their own interests should be the compass that points them in the direction that their learning should go. I couldn't be happier with how our family life is, that we don't have the stress that most families have. It's amazing, and you don't realize how much stress you're under having them in a traditional system till you take them out of it. And it's a wonderful thing, just like the same excitement that most parents have when they see their children walk. The reason why you're so excited is because you didn't teach them that. You don't know when it's going to happen. Well, I have that excitement all the time. I see my children learning to read, and it's the most wonderful thing knowing she did that on her own. She's taking initiative. And so I get to live that same excitement that a lot of parents live during their early years with their children, but not during their school years when they're kind of, when they have to stand over them and make them do their homework.